Hey, everybody. Good evening. It's Ellen Lewis from Crazy for You. And tonight I want to talk about my favorite subject, which is knitting sweaters that fit. I think it's so important. There's really nothing more frustrating for a knitter than spending the time, money, energy, effort, all of the hopes and dreams and expectations of a sweater, only to finish it and find out that it doesn't actually fit you. And that happens more than I like to talk about, and it's so disheartening and it's such a shame. But it doesn't have to be that way. And in this session, what I want to talk about is some simple concepts that will help you pick the right size for you so that you never have the frustration of knitting a sweater that doesn't fit. You're always going to know what size is right for you, and the sweater is going to come out looking great. So let's get started. Let me take a minute and oh my goodness, how nice to see everybody. Hi, Barbara. Hi, Jal. Hey, Carolyn, Alice, Alicia. It's nice to see you. Hi, Gwen. Um, Hi, Terry. Good, good, good. All my friends. So super wonderful to see you. Okay, so let's talk first, I think, about how sweaters are designed. Because once you kind of understand how sweaters are designed, you can see why they may or may not fit you perfectly right off the rack. Okay, so a designer has to design to a standard. There are so many of us out here with different body sizes and shapes, and we're all have our, we're all larger in different places and smaller in different places. So it would be an unfathomable task for a designer to try and design all of the different iterations. So they just go with a standard, and is a standard set of measurements associated with every bust size. So it starts at the bust, right? So for a woman with a 32 bust, which means she measures 32 around, there's a whole host of assumptions about how large she is or what size she is in other parts of her body. There are assumptions about how tall she is, how long her arms are, how large her waist is, all of it. And it goes from, size 32 all the way up to the current size inclusivity of 5X. And there are assumptions made about every single body in between, right? Because you have to make certain assumptions because there are just too many unknowns. So when they make those assumptions, then they design the pattern to those assumptions, right? So for a woman with a 36-inch bust, they make an assumption about how large her waist is, how deep her armhole is, and they grade all of the patterns to suit that, right? That makes sense. I mean, of course. So they will often tell you in the pattern how much ease they want, which means how they want this garment to fit. So they've designed the garment for a certain size, and they're saying, okay, this is a close fitting garment. I want this to have between 1 inch of negative ease and 1 inch of positive ease. So it might be that you have, you know, so the size is saying like for a 36, to fit a 36 to 38-inch bust, the finished measurement is going to be 37. Okay. So that means that if you have a 36-inch bust, a 37-inch bust, a 38-inch bust, they're recommending that you knit the size 37, which indicates that that's a close fitting garment, right? Um, which works most of the time. But here's a thing that's really, really important to remember. And that is that along with all of those bust sizing and length and width and waist and all of that, they're making an assumption about your bust size. And I don't mean the measurement around, I mean your cup size. So the standard is a B cup, right? So they're making the assumption that your boobs are a B cup, okay? I don't know any other way to say it, but they're making an assumption that you're not very busty. Because, I mean, again, they can't design for all the sizes. So when you go to choose a size, if you're a B cup, yay, life is easy for you. You know, you just look and see what your full bust measurement is, and you choose the size that's designed for your full bust measurement, right? But if you're busty, things sort of tend to fall apart. And that's where we get into trouble, like with ease. Okay. So let's talk real quick about what ease is. And simply stated, ease is the difference between the size of the garment and the size of your body. So if the size of the sweater is 40 inches and they recommend that size for a 36-inch bust, that means that they are recommending 4 inches of ease for a B cup person. Okay. They might also say that for a 36-inch body, they're recommending that you knit a size that's 34 inches finished measurement. That's going to be 2 inches of negative ease, right? So that makes sense. It's simple arithmetic. But it's also important to remember that the ease is only at the bust. Okay, so most of us are smaller in the waist than we are in the bust. So you might have 2 inches of negative ease at your bust, but you'll still have 6 to 8 inches maybe of positive ease in your waistline. Do you see what I'm saying? So when you make a choice about what size to knit based solely on what the measuring tape around the fullest part of your bust says, you might very well knit a sweater that is much, much too large for you. Because our bust lines, if we're more than a B cup, our bust lines are going to skew the data a little bit. Have you had that happen? Tell me in the comments if that has happened to you. I know some of you, I'm sure Terry and Meredith, have had this situation happen. Hey, Karen, it's nice to see you. Polly. Hi, Tina. So so tell me in the comments if you've had this experience. So I've been helping knitters make sweaters that fit for going on 2 decades now, right? I personally have knit hundreds of sweaters for me. And when I started out, I wasn't that happy with the way they fit. And, I didn't really understand why. But over the years, working with lots and lots of different knitters, I've come to understand the importance of really understanding how ease works for a busty knitter. Okay. So yes, of course, you've had it, Meredith, and I would expect that Terry has had that as well. So when you're choosing a size and you know that you're busty, if you're a little bit busty, okay, so like a C, maybe a D cup, and you tend to be slender, probably the best thing to do would be simply to choose a size that is smaller than you think. The reason is that, as I said, all of the measurements, all of the lengths and the width are built for the person with that bust that's a B cup. So that person's other measurements correlate to, say, a 34. If you've got, a very generous bosom, my oldest daughter has she's so tiny. I mean, she's so tiny everywhere, except her bust line is very, very big. And, it would really skew the data for her to knit. I think her bust line actually measures like 38, but, she's just minuscule every place else. So she's had this experience of things that, if they fit at the bust, they don't fit in the shoulders, and they don't fit every place else. So that's when you have to get into this, to the idea that negative ease is okay. In fact, negative ease is your friend. And when you think about negative ease, it's very tempting to think, oh my gosh, negative ease, that means the sweater is going to stretch over my bust line and I'm going to look cheap, or, it's going to look totally stretched out, or it's going to look really horrible. But the truth is, as I said, when it's stretching over your bust, it might stretch over your bust by 2 inches or so, but it's not stretching over your whole entire body by that much. You'll still have a decent amount of ease. You might have 4 to 8 inches of ease, in your waist area. And what that does is it allows the fabric to cup just the tiniest bit under your bust line, so that it shows, hey, I'm not big, I just have a big bust line. So it cups under just a tiny bit, and then, smooths down, and so that it's relaxed under the bust line. Tell me if that makes sense. Hey, Alyssa. Hey, Norma, let's see. Okay, Alyssa says, and I didn't understand why, because I was careful to swatch right down my mix. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I'm glad that this is helpful for you. Hey, Sandy. Hi, Valerie. So, right. So it's so important to actually think in terms of what your realistic measurement is. How do you know? Okay, how do you find out what size you should actually be knitting if you're busty, if it's not your full bust measurement? And I promise you it isn't. So what I like to do, there are 2 things that I think are super important, and they kind of go hand in hand in terms of choosing the right size for you. And that is to take this measurement, this upper bust measurement, above your bust line. Okay, so if you're in my custom fit program, you know this. We have done this a million times, but this is when you take the tape measure and you bring it up underneath your armpits, and up over your bust line, so that your actual breasts are not skewing the data that is the size of your body. So this being the size of your body, irrespective of how large your bust line is or how far it sticks out. Okay, so taking that measurement and using that to choose a size is a much, much more accurate way to get a size that's going to fit you every place else. Now, that works great if you are, as I said, a little bit busty. So I consider myself a little bit busty, right? I wear like a CD cup. And I've never had to do any kinds of adjustments. But if you are busty like my daughter is busty, or maybe busty like some of my customers are busty, you might want to choose that smaller size that correlates to your upper bust measurement, and then make some adjustments for your bust line to give yourself either extra length. You can do short rows. You can give yourself vertical darts. Short rows are, in effect, horizontal darts in your fabric that give you extra length to cover over the bust. Or, as they do in the custom fit, they use vertical darts to give you extra fabric going up to the bust line. But if you choose the size based on your upper bust, that's such a closer indication of your overall body size. Okay. It doesn't mean that there won't be little tweaks that you can make if you're taller or shorter, or, whatever, have different preferences. You will, but you'll come out of the gate with a much closer a much closer to accurate sweater fit than if you just looked at your full bust measurement and went with the ease recommendations there. So I always like to say that ease and how much you like, it's a very personal preference. You know, all of us have different comfort levels with how much ease we're happy with. Okay. I think the maybe the more slender you are, the more comfortable you are with ease. I think with like less ease, maybe showing your shape. Whereas I've spoken with a lot of my customers and clients who are larger, and they are uncomfortable with this idea of negative ease. But I will tell you that every single one who has embraced a little bit of negative ease at the bust line has been super happy with the result. Um, I think at some level there is a concern if you're a larger person that you're just afraid the sweater won't fit and that it will be, and the reason that it won't fit is because it's going to be too small. But as I said, I have rarely ever seen somebody come back and say, this sweater doesn't fit, it's too small. I hear the opposite all the time. This sweater doesn't fit, it's too large. And the thing that's sort of interesting is what I want to talk about next, which is taking a piece of clothing from your wardrobe that you love and measuring that. If you don't have something in your wardrobe similar to what you're thinking about knitting, go to the store. Go to a beautiful store go to a high-end store with a beautiful dressing room and sweaters that you love, and take several of them into the dressing room and try them on until you find the one that you feel looks good, that you feel really comfortable in, and it makes you happy to wear it. And then lay that sweater down on the bench. This is why I say go to a high-end store, because they usually have really nice dressing rooms with a bench and plenty of space for you to spread out. Anyway, lay that sweater down and measure the width at the bust. And for most sweaters, that width is going to be right at the beginning of the armhole. Okay, so just measure it straight across. And it might measure, 22 inches. And so 22 on the front, 22 on the back, that's 44. So it might be that sweater measures 44 inches. And you may be a 46 bust. And I think you'll just be so surprised to find how sweaters that you actually like to wear fit you versus going into choosing a sweater size with no data at all. Um, I tell this story all the time, and it is that the majority of my interactions in the shop. So for those of you who don't know, I own Crazy for You in Leonardtown, Maryland, and we're a custom fit store, we're a sweater store, and we help knitters make sweaters they're proud to wear. Sweaters that fit and look great and they feel fabulous in. Our tagline is fun to knit, fabulous to wear. Anyway, so if a customer comes in and they want to make a sweater, after picking the yarn and the pattern, the first question I usually ask is, well, what size will you be making? Because that's how you determine how much yarn you're going to need, right? And they say something like, well, I'm a 36 bust, but I don't want it to be too tight. So I was thinking I'd make make a 38, but it doesn't come in a 38. So I guess I'll make the 40. And then they've got this sweater that's too large. So that's not good. Okay, I have a comment here from Meredith. Let's see what Meredith says. I have a project to get with you on for this exact thing because I'm worried the yarn won't have much give, though it is lace. I'm very conflicted. Okay, so we will talk about that. Let's talk about it right now. So sweaters stretch. This whole concept of negative ease, when we think about things that are smaller than our body, we immediately think about things that are too tight for us to wear. And we've all seen blouses that gap at the bust line and they look really, really bad. Okay. Remember that a blouse is not a sweater. And I'm talking mainly about pullovers, okay? So a sweater is made of a knitted fabric, and knitted fabric stretches. So Meredith's concern is that the yarn she's using doesn't have a lot of give. And that's okay because the yarn doesn't have to have so much give because the fabric itself gives. You know, any little bit of knitted fabric you've got is going to stretch. So here's just a tiny bit of knitted fabric. Look how much stretch there is. There's quite a bit of stretch, even in just this tiny little swatch, without distorting the fabric. Sure, you can distort the fabric over your bust line and have it look really, really bad, which, by the way, I don't recommend. But a little bit of stretch over the bust line and then have it come back in is very, very flattering when you have a larger bust. It just tells the world that you're not big, you just have a big bust, and it comes down and it shows the rest of your shape. So that is my recommendation for sweaters that are relatively close fit. I'm talking t-shirts, polo shirts, turtlenecks, shells, tanks, a tiny bit of negative ease over the bust line, and then have it come in a little bit, but still give you, you know, 4 to 6 to 8 inches of ease in the waistline. Totally good. I guarantee you'll be much, much happier if you base your size measurement on your upper bust than your full bust if you are bigger than a B cup. Okay. So let's talk also, excuse me, about the opposite end of the scale. Oh, and I wanted to show you real quick. I have the whole reason this came up is because this is the staple linen top that we have been knitting in the knit along. And this is Joji Locatelli's design, and she says that she knit it with 0 inches of ease. And you can see this is a drapey fabric. So look how you can actually see the curve of her bust here. I believe that she might have, I don't know, maybe half an inch after her bra is on. She maybe has half an inch or 3/4 of an inch of negative ease here, because you can see the curve of her bust line, right? And it doesn't look too tight or anything. It just looks like normal. It just looks like it fits her perfectly, right? See what I'm saying here? See how right here, you can see where my cursor is. See how that cups under the bust line just a little bit, but it still doesn't look too tight. So this is the example that I wanted to share with you for a shell or something that fits closely, right? So the other thing I wanted to share with you is this sweater, which is kind of at the opposite end of the spectrum. I think this is a gorgeous sweater, and this is a sweater designed to have a lot of ease. Okay? If you look at the specifications on this, it has about 20 inches of ease recommended. It's beautiful, isn't it? So 20 inches of ease. What that says, and when you're looking at a pattern like this, you want to think, okay, what is the designer trying to tell me? What is she getting at with 20 inches of ease? All right. She is getting at, this is an oversized garment. This is a garment that you want to flow and be floaty and, so relaxed and so elegant, and just have all of that ease that it hangs away from your body. Does that mean that if you have a very large bust, say a 48-inch bust, but your upper bust measurement is 42 or 40, that you should give yourself 20 inches of ease over the full bust? No, you're going to be really, really unhappy. You want to, again, use that upper bust measurement to decide what size to knit. Even if you end up only having 15 inches of ease across your full bust, the remainder of the garment will fit you correctly. And you will be much, much happier than if you knit some huge size. Let me just also warn you that just because the smallest size has a finished bust of 54 doesn't mean that you should, if you have a bust of 48, that you should knit that smallest size. You do want to aim for something that's going to give you a solid 20 inches of ease over your upper bust. Okay, let me say that again and explain that again. It's tempting when you see an oversized garment. And I have a video on this. It's what size to knit for oversized garments, of course. And you should totally watch that, because if you've got a garment that's very oversized, it's usually a drop shoulder. That drop shoulder is intended to hit at a certain point on your arm. And if you knit a size that's too small simply because you have not paid attention to the designer's concept for ease and fit, it's not going to fit you the way you expect. I know this is sort of counter and it may seem conflicted, but remember that you want to use your upper bust measurement here, okay? And if your upper bust measurement here is going to give you the size that you should use. So if you're a larger person, just because you are not as large as the smallest size, it doesn't mean that you should knit that smallest size. So what is my recommendation? If you are, I actually wrote this in the newsletter, and if you don't get the newsletter, you can go ahead and sign up. There's a link in the description below. You can sign up to the newsletter. But I wrote this in the blog post a couple weeks ago. So for a close fitting top, find a similar garment in your wardrobe and measure that and see how much ease you like. If you are busty, you can probably size down a little bit on that. Okay. If you are very busty, you might need to make some adjustments, but again, you're going to choose the size based on your upper bust. If the garment that you're measuring is a very, very fine gauge, you're going to want to ease up a little on that. So if you see a garment that you like and it's a 32, but it's a very fine, like a tissue weight, you might want to give yourself an extra inch or so of ease. For a larger, loose flowing, you can probably size down, but don't size down so far that you don't have somewhere in the neighborhood of the amount of ease recommended for your upper bust. So does that make sense? I want to hear in the comments if you understand what I'm saying and if this makes sense and if you have any questions on this. So they're just little rule of thumbs. And if you take nothing else away from this session tonight, get your upper bust measurement. Okay, get that measurement and write it down and look at the things that you are considering knitting and find the one that is closest to that size. Okay. It definitely is a little bit of a learning experience. I know one of our customers has said that she likes 4 inches of ease in everything she knits. That's great. She knows how she likes garments to fit. She is not comfortable with things that have negative ease, and she's not ever going to knit anything that has negative ease, which is totally fine. This is about your preference and your style. So I hope that this is helpful. And if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. The website is www.crazyforyou.com. And I look forward to seeing you next time. In the meantime, get started on something that is fun to knit and fabulous to wear. Good night.